Hey all, EC here, and today, we're about a month away from Pokemon Legends EA. We've had the recent Nintendo Direct, and I want to go over my concerns for the game now that we have more information. Well, now, obviously, the game is coming out, within a month. I want to go over my concerns, what I think, and all that sort of stuff. So if you're interested, make sure you subscribe, like, and that sort of stuff, and we're going to get into it. So let's start with the obvious fact. This is a cross-gen Pokemon game. I believe this is the second time that Pokemon has ever done this. I think the last one was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the first one, which had Red Rescue Team on the Game Boy Advance and Blue Rescue Team on the DS. Released. I think they were released on the same day, but obviously different platforms. Now, why that's a concern for me is obviously I feel like what they're going to do with this, the Switch 2 version is going to be the more expensive version, which it's already been confirmed to be more expensive, and it will run better. But then the Switch 1 version, which is obviously probably going to be the version that a lot of people will get, because I don't think a lot of people have upgraded yet, because obviously I know Switch 2 has sold quite well, but there's still a large audience on the Switch 1. The Switch 1 still has a huge install base. So I feel like a lot of people will get the Switch 1 version, and the game will be cheaper, but it'll also run terribly, because Pokemon is kind of notorious for running quite badly on the Switch 1. Obviously, look at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. A lot of Pokemon games didn't run the best on the Switch, and that's largely because Game Freak, I believe, struggled with the development for the Switch. Now, I am hopeful that they do find a way to improve that, and obviously the Switch 1 version will run, and obviously, I hope the Switch 2 version, is reasonable, because obviously the price I've seen is like, I believe the Switch 2 version is like 50 odd quid on Amazon, British money. And I believe the Switch 1 version is like 40 odd quid, so not too insane, but obviously I hope there's some like improvements that are made for the Switch 1 version so it runs fine, and also the Switch 2 version can justify its higher price point. Another concern is obviously the art style. I'm not saying it's ugly, but it feels like they're not really doing much upgrade throughout this generation. I know the Switch games all look the same. The Switch 2, like Pokemon, this is a Switch 2 game. It doesn't look next gen, because obviously it's also being on Switch 1. That's a concern. Obviously, the art style, I can't hope they improve that in the future. And my biggest concern is Mega Dimensions. Now, the game isn't even out yet, and they felt the need to announce a paid DLC, which is obviously, to me, quite a big concern, because the last time I believe they did this was with Pokemon Friends, which they sort of sold to people as like a $10 eShop game, and obviously day one they had like $30-40 worth of DLC packs, which to me, I understand obviously you've got to keep going, but is what it is. But the thing is with the DLC, it annoys me when companies announce DLCs before the game's even out, because that just says to me, hey, this is all the content we wanted to include, but we had to cut content for time constraints, which then you just ask the question, why didn't you just delay the game? Why didn't you just add this content before you started, before you released it? And it's a paid DLC that they've already announced and they confirmed. And they confirmed it in Nintendo Direct, before the game's even out. That just, to me, just makes me feel kind of iffy. I'm like, come on. Like, that just says to me that they're more focused on making money with this than actually making a good game. And, I hope my concerns, I hope, the Pokemon Company and Game Freak and Nintendo, they make it so, my concerns aren't like that bad, and they come out and the game's really good and really fun and enjoyable. But obviously my concerns, just that they are concerns. I'm not sure if, they're going to actually come out and address this sort of stuff. I'm not sure if, it's going to do well. The other one I think it's called Pokemon Poketopia. That seems kind of cool. I'm interested in that. But obviously with Pokemon Legends EA, my concerns are literally the fact it's going to be a cross-gen game, and I feel like they're gonna cheap out on at least one version of that game. Obviously the art style, I kind of wish that they would improve it and make it look better. And also, I paid DLC, but also I hope with the sort of more open world, because Pokemon start to have more of an open world sort of feel, I hope it's not barren, because a lot of like Pokemon games just feel kind of barren now, because they have big open worlds and there's not really much anything in them. So hopefully they obviously don't have that in this case, and obviously the open world, or like at least like the city structure that you're taking it place in will have more, more of, at least more like Pokemon walking around and whatever, because otherwise it just kind of feels kind of empty. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, turn notifications. I've been EC, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.